Welcome to the Roost Podcast, brought to you by Buckeye Bowhunter. And now, your host, Josh Grund.
What is going on, guys? Thank you for joining us today. Super excited about this episode. It was really fun to, kind of get together with Bryce and John. It's been a while since we did an episode. We've been turkey hunting our butts off, and in this one, we kind of just recapped our seasons. We talk about, my Kentucky trip. We talk about our Southern Ohio trip. Talk about a couple different hunts we had around here at home between me and Bryce. We had some successful hunts, and we had some failure hunts. If you guys watch the YouTube channel, you've seen a few of those so far. Got a couple more episodes of Roosted still to debut coming soon. Then we get a little bit into hunting pressure, but not like the pressure you think, like the pressure we put on ourselves to be successful as hunters, and how to kind of deal with that, I guess. Really excited about this episode. I hope you guys enjoy it. It's kind of a long one, so sit back, grab a beer, grab a drink. If you're on a long drive, put this one on. It'll be perfect for you. With that said, please enjoy. All right, guys. Well, we are back again for the 5th episode. We are still doing this thing, keeping it going. I got Bryce here with me. You guys have met him plenty of times. John, he was with us on the last episode, so happy to have him here. We got a lot to kind of unpack and discuss today, talking about our recent turkey hunting escapades and what we've been through. Went down to the Wayne. I hunted Kentucky, so that'll be fun. We'll get into that. We'll talk a little bit about what we got coming up, and excited to be able to finally find some time. It's been a minute to get with you guys and chat, and how you guys been? Either one, Bryce. How you been,
John,
Bryce?
take the honors.
Okay.
I'm good, man. I'm good. I haven't been turkey hunting so hard this last half of the season, but still been out in the woods. Been doing a lot of morel hunting. Kind of just turkey hunting as I go. I had some good opportunities, and whatnot. We'll get to that later, but been good. Busy as heck, man. You know how it is when spring hits like this and you start to get into summer with all that warm weather. It's something with the family, something with the woman, 100 things with work. There's never enough free time, so glad we can get together today, though. This is great.
Me and Bryce work together, and it has been grueling for the last few weeks, to say the least. So the turkey hunting has definitely suffered, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah. How about you, John? How you been, man?
Yeah, I'm doing great. After the turkey hunting trip, it was a great time, kind of riding a high off of it. Getting back into the routine of everyday life, and everything's just been going great.
Very good, very good.
Your job sounds better than ours.
Yeah, right. Yeah, man. So I guess for you listeners, we'll just kind of recap what, I got some videos coming out on YouTube. I think, I posted my Kentucky video, John's hunt in Southern Ohio for opening weekend of Ohio's season will be next on YouTube. I'm actually working on that video right now. It's actually turning out sick, John. It's like pretty cool, dude. I'm pretty excited about it.
Oh, that's great.
That'll be a coming up here, hopefully by the beginning of next week. But yeah, I don't know. I guess we can kind of start from the beginning. My Kentucky hunt. You guys want to hear about it?
Absolutely.
So it was a blast. It was like a crazy learning experience. It was completely different than I thought it would be. I've hunted this Southern Ohio, the Wayne National Forest, for a long time, and that's kind of what I was expecting. The hills were much bigger than I thought. The walks were much longer than I was expecting. A little learning lesson would be probably to get in a little better shape before next year going down there.
Up.
Oh my God, man. I was like, and the boots. That's the other thing. I need a set of boots if you're going to Kentucky that have like stiffer soles or something, because, you know, you're walking a lot of gravel roads and a lot of dirt roads, side hilling it a lot. And I wear a pair of those Irish setter. I can't think of what they're called, but they're just like a good, you know, boot for walking around on flatland, but there's not a lot of ankle support. And I could feel like by the end of every day, I could literally like feel the rocks coming through the soles of the boots. And it was just, yeah, it was rough.
No.
But, so those would be two main things I would change. But, you know, I'll try to kind of recap it and not take forever. I was down there, for opening, morning, and I hunted through all the way till the next Friday, right before Ohio opened, and drove down there Friday afternoon. Met up with my coworker's son. His name's Parker. Really good kid, really into turkey hunting, and he kind of took me around and showed me some public land that evening, and we went and roosted a bunch of birds. It was pretty crazy because it doesn't really happen too often in Ohio. I literally drive, you think about it, you drive 5 hours, you get out at a WMA, you hit the owl hooter, and I have 4 birds within 500 yards gobbling their heads off in the evening. I was fired up, man. I'm like, oh my God, tomorrow I'm going to just tag out, no problem. And then it's just easy coasting the rest of my trip down here. It didn't go like that though. So first morning, I got in there to go after them birds, and I was met by, I don't know, 4 or 5 guys at that parking lot, which, you know, that's kind of what you run into on public land. But it was like, as I rolled in at 3:30 and there was already a truck parked there. Like, I literally woke up at 2:45, got ready. It's 10 minutes down the road from where I was staying, and there was a guy parked there already from Ohio. Everybody I ran into was from Ohio too, by the way, which was pretty interesting. But as I'm getting ready, he's talking to me about, you know, past years that he's hunted there. 2 other trucks roll in with 2 guys apiece. And then as I'm like walking back towards where those birds were roosted, you're going up a big hill. I could see the parking lot. There's, 2 other trucks. You see their headlights coming in. So it was packed. But I got all the way back there. Those birds started gobbling right off the roost. Long story short, I was working them for a little while, and you could tell they flew down, and they were kind of working down the hill towards like the bottom, gobbling, and another turkey hunter started calling between me and them, and boom, next thing I know. So I was joking in my video how, I think it was the guy I met in the parking lot. So if you met the guy from Buckeye Bowhunter in the parking lot, just know he called your bird in for you.
There you go.
I'm almost positive. Like, because we were like I would call and he would call. And then for a little bit, it sounded like the birds were kind of like in between us a little bit, or like out further, but like they could come to me or they could come to him. And then it's, after a while, it sounded like they were kind of held up like right in front of him. And I ended up actually getting up and walking backwards and calling a couple times. Boom, he shot him. So we're down there, you're working on property lines. That was the one thing I noticed too, is like most of the turkeys were roosting off of the public. So you could get, 100, 200 yards from the private land line and try to call the birds crossed is what it seemed like. Every bird that I roosted was like, just off of public land. So you're like constantly fighting property lines, it seemed like. But day 2 was not as good. Ran into some weather, got a ton of crazy wind. Like middle of the day, it was like rain, a big rainstorm came through, and then it was like 40-mile-an-hour winds, which really put a damper on the turkey hunting. Well, I guess I'll say, in the first day, the whole day was great. I had birds gobbling almost all morning. I had a lot of trouble getting them to move, getting them to come into me. That's another thing. With the hills down there, it's so difficult to tell like where they're gobbling from. That was another thing I noticed, and I'll talk about that a little more when I get into when I harvested my bird. But just kind of getting ears on birds was really easy, but like figuring out where they were and getting to them and getting in a position like we were talking about in the last podcast to where you feel like you could call that bird into you proved to be like the most difficult part for me. Like I said, day 2, really tough conditions. I probably walked 7-8 miles that day. Didn't hear a single bird. Day 3, the weather was pretty crappy in the morning. I was hunting public land, but there were a couple mornings in there. I can't remember exactly what mornings where I went and hunted some private, sit in a blind. And that third morning was one of those mornings, I believe, because the weather was so bad. We're like, let's just go sit in a blind. So me and Parker went and sat in a blind. Didn't have any luck. We had some farm pet turkeys gobbling at us all morning across the road, but that was about it. And then the 4th day, I'm trying to remember all this now. I got on a couple birds early in the morning, had them gobbling, couldn't get them to move. They were all on private land, and I was kind of skirting, that property line, trying to get them to cross. Fighting a couple hunters that day too, calling back and forth. And then that evening, I decided, because in the evenings I was just kind of like trying to roost birds from like parking lots and stuff. And that evening I decided, like, okay, it's day 4, like it's time to get really serious. So I made like a 2 mile, it was actually 1.6 miles, I think, hike back into this WMA and tried to roost birds. I waited till it got dark, and I'm a grown man, but I'll be the first to admit, and I know everybody feels like this, when you're back there in the middle of nowhere and it's getting dark, like, it's creepy, man. Like, I felt a little better than I did when I was on my New York trip bow hunting, because I had a shotgun in my hand, but still it's a 410, and anyone else you're going to run into who's got a 12 gauge with them. But
Right.
it was just creepy. You start thinking about Bigfoot, and you're like, dude, I got to get out of here. But, I held all them intrusive thoughts at bay. And I stayed until, that perfect roosting time, and I ended up roosting a bird out at the end of this big ridge. It was, I think I talked about this on the last podcast too. I got Onyx in front of me. I got that bird to gobble, so I'm, you can point your phone at it, and it shows exactly what way you're pointed. So I'm like, okay, from where I'm standing, it sounds like he's gobbling right here. I put a pin, and then I walked about 200-300 yards down the ridge, made him gobble again, put another pin in there, and I'm like, okay, so he's definitely on this ridge. Both those lined up perfectly where I thought he was. He was off the public on private, but only about 150-200 yards, it seemed like. So I figured I could get 50-60 yards from that property line, call him across maybe. So I left him, got out of there. I was pretty pumped for the morning, got in there nice and early. And sure enough, I walk all the way out there, go all the way down that ridge, get about, 100 yards from the property line, and I'm standing there waiting for it to get light. And then this bird gobbles. And I almost think it was like a different bird. And I still don't know really, but he gobbled like probably 15-20 times, and I could not tell where he was. I don't know if it was like where I was standing in the bowl, in the ridge, and which way he was facing, but that bird gobbled, and every time it was just like, whew, like I have no idea. It was so weird, man. And my ears are probably getting bad with my old age from rocking out to music and stuff in the car, driving and shooting guns without hearing protection too. Because what I did notice is Parker, he's, I think he's like 19 or 20, and he had some ears, man. He could hear really well. And I'd be like, I didn't hear it. And he's like, no, that was a gobble. And we go, another 200 yards, and then I would hear it. So it could just be my ears are getting bad, but man, it sounded like, so I was on the ridge that I thought that
multiple birds.
Well, here's what that's kind of
multiple birds.
That's kind of what I was thinking too, but that he was the only bird gobbling that morning. And it was right in the same bowl that I left that bird gobbling the night before. So I'm thinking, like,
Gotcha.
What are the odds that the bird I had gobbling like crazy last night isn't gobbling this morning when this other bird is gobbling his head off that didn't gobble last night?
Right.
It's like you would think they would.
Yeah, it's hard to believe, right?
I guess it's possible, but you think they would both be gobbling if there were two. So I was on the ridge that I thought that bird was on. in the morning. And when he started gobbling, I swear to you, it sounded like he was on the other ridge. So I'm standing there in the dark and I'm like, now what do I do? Like it's hard to explain how far this is, guys. Like we hunted the Wayne. It's like those bowls and those hills are like literally a quarter. So like, and I'm tired. You got to think it's like day 5. Like a turkey sounds good, but also like not walking sounds really good too. So I'm standing there and I'm like, dude, do I walk all the way back out to the edge, to the mouth of this bowl and go back all the way where I came and walk out that ridge? Cause that's a 40-minute walk. And I'm like, if I get over there and it sounds like this bird is down here, I'm going home. Like this is crazy. So that's kind of what I decided to do. So I pack up all my gear and I start walking, and I get about, 10 minutes into the walk, and I'm kind of coming up on where the head of that bowl is, and I hit my call just to see if I can hear him gobble again. And he was kind of gobbling the whole time I was walking. I was still having trouble figuring out where he was. But I hit my call, and boom, like 300 yards in front of me, I hear a bird gobble. And it kind of sounded like it was like one of those like half-ass gobbles that you knew was probably a Jake, But immediately in my head, I'm like, day 5, first Kentucky bird. I don't care. Killing it.
It's gotta be it.
Yeah. So I kind of just dropped down onto the bench, like down below me, because I'm on top of the ridge. I dropped down one bench, like 200 yards, and this whole valley's pretty thick, so I could get away with it, I thought. And I just set up, call 3 or 4 times, and that was it. And this bird starts coming in. First I heard just scratch, like leaves moving. You could hear him walking. And immediately I'm like, oh, this is turkeys walking. I get set up, got my camera going, got my GoPro going. I hear, and I start scratching, and I hear all these cluck, cluck. You could hear the toms like we heard in Southern Ohio, like kind of cluck in, and like they weren't yelping, but then one of them gobbled, and I'm like I said, I'm up on this bench. I'm probably doing a terrible job explaining it, but they were down way below me on like the side of the bench. So the video was terrible, but all I could see was their heads.
Let me cut you off.
Yeah,
to
please.
tie in last week. So you heard them 200-300 yards away. What was your thought process? So,
yes. Okay. Very good.
So you hear them, right? What do you do?
Yeah.
What's your move?
So I got to kind of explain the lay of the land. Like I'm on like the side of I'm on the very top of this big ridge, and all these ridges like drop down, and there's like a big bench, and then they drop down again, and there's another big bench, and they drop down again, and there's another big bench, and then they drop down to the bottom. And one way, like to my left, I guess, is the mouth or the top of this valley, and out to my right goes out to the end of the ridge, like towards the tip of the turkey foot, I guess. And when that bird gobbled, it was pretty obvious, like I heard him very well, that he's literally 300 yards in front of me down, like on the next bench. Like it was loud enough where I'm like, oh, that bird's like right here. Because all these other turkey gobbles that I was hearing, like I heard a ton of gobbles, but they were just like so far away. And this was like, boom, immediately I heard it very well. And I'm like, okay, this bird's right here. So my thought process, like he's 300 yards away, right? Is that first bench is maybe, 70 yards straight down this little hill. Boom, I can get to that. And that's like one extra thing. The side of this hill was pretty steep. It was really thick too. And I'm up on top. There's like, it's like a gravel road almost. And my thought process was like, I'm not going to be able to call him to this gravel road because this is where everyone's walking. I got to at least get down onto the next bench where I think these birds are. And then I can call him just straight across from me because I know he's not up on top with me. And he's far enough away that I think I can make that move. It's thick enough. So that was kind of my thought process. So I just literally slid down right to that first bench, got set up, and, within...
set up on?
I set up. It was just a single tree. I had my camera right here to my right, my GoPro over to the left, and I didn't even pull out my netting or anything like that because I knew it was going to happen really quick.
Game time. Yep.
I just wanted to get set up, and then I wasn't really worried about hiding too much because, and it's hard to explain. Again, you kind of have to be there, how thick it was, but it was like that kind of thick that a turkey would walk through, right? But I knew if I was going to get a shot at these birds, like I would be able to kill them before they saw me or pick me out. You know what I'm saying? I would rather
The oh shit
have
moment.
yeah, exactly. I would rather be able to not have to worry about all this cover and everything on me and be able to make a big move, which is what I ended up having to do to kill these birds because I could hear them coming the whole time in the leaves, like I said. And like I'm looking down the hill. I'm like at some point I'm going to be able to see these turkeys, but I haven't seen them. And then all of a sudden I just see all these heads just kind of bobbing back and forth, like looking around, because you could tell they were looking for me because I was just up there scratching in the leaves, trying to sound like a hen feeding, And
yeah,
I had
awesome.
I had my gun to the right because there was, that's where I heard them, and it sounded like. But when they popped up, there was a whole bunch of stuff between me and the birds and their heads, right? And there was one straggler that kind of walked off to the left, and he was the one that I had to like swing my gun over and boom, just kind of shoot him real quick. All I could see was his head and part of his chest, and I could just tell he had that little tiny beard poking out. But that was it, man. And I'll tell you what, that was like the hardest I've ever worked for a bird. And I think even though it was a Jake, it was a little, I don't know, 18-pound bird, like, God, that was cool, man.
Still tastes good. Worth every step.
Yeah. First out of state hunt, first time in Kentucky, public land. Yeah. I was pretty pumped with it, man. I was pretty happy. But
no, congratulations, man. That's awesome. We talked about almost everything that you kind of mentioned, obviously not the topography or the challenges of other public land hunters, but it came together for you, and that's something to be proud of.
Yeah, that was a big thing, was the public land, because you always think, and everyone always tells you, like, oh, if you want to do good, like, you got to walk and get back in there, be diehard. Well, everybody I ran into was doing that. Like,
yeah,
I ran into a guy, I was there, I think it was like the third or fourth morning. I got to the parking lot, no one was there. Like 3:15, 4 o'clock, get all the way back in. I walked 2 miles back in there. Like I'm standing there and I'm like standing on this path and I'm like looking up ahead of me. I'm like, something's moving. Like, what is that? I'm not kidding. It's 2 hours before daylight. And sure as shit, here comes another hunter. I talked to him for an hour before it got dark. He was a super cool guy from Ohio up there hunting. But like, I thought like, oh, I'm hardcore. I'm way back here. None of these people are coming all the way back here to turkey hunt. That's what everybody is told to do now. And that's what everybody does. And like I said, everybody I ran into was an Ohio hunter. They're paying for those out-of-state tags. They're driving all the way down there to turkey hunt. They're not going to walk 100 yards from the parking lot and call it a day. They're putting on in the time. They're putting in the miles. There were cars parked. I traveled to a couple WMAs, and there were cars parked, noon, 1, 2, 3 o'clock. Every time I'd come back to my truck, there'd be different trucks there. Like people were hunting all day, every day down there. So and it seemed like whenever you get a bird gobbling and I get on that bird, another hunter would start calling from somewhere else, and it was definitely a challenge.
Doesn't that make you think though, like all the hardcore hunters go put them miles in, how many of them turkeys are just roosted right by the entrance or something? That really at the 100 yards maybe?
I don't know how true that is for turkeys as it is for like deer.
Deer for sure.
Not to change the subject to deer, but I think deer definitely adapt to that very quickly. I think turkeys are more likely to just vacate the area, just like leave.
Right.
So if you were to bring in the deer conversation, you're talking about traveling hiking back 1.5 miles, 2 miles back in, getting deep, putting on the miles on your boots. When it comes to deer hunting, if you do get one, well, carrying out a little 20-pound, bird versus dragging out, the buck of a lifetime or even a doe or anything, you're looking at 100 and whatever pounds. So
Right.
20 pounds versus 100 plus, I just don't see hunters willing to do that, especially guys that are older, that
Right.
just can't physically do it. They can walk back there, but they can't get them out.
That's true. I think in Kentucky, I could be wrong. I haven't looked into it, but I'm sure you're allowed to. I know you're allowed to in Ohio to quarter out deer. That would be probably your best option in a lot of those situations because, you're killing. I killed that turkey. I had a pretty nice path to walk out, but like a lot of those guys are probably, if you're killing a deer on private or public land like that, you're not going to have a nice path to like wheel a deer cart out. Your probably only option is to quarter a deer out. I can't say I've ever done that, but that would probably be what I would do if I went down to Kentucky, because I am interested in doing it this year and bow hunting for that early September season. That'll probably be what I plan on doing if I kill one. But I'll tell you what, guys, if you're interested in going down there, that would be a fun trip because there was so many deer. I saw so many deer.
I'd kill anything, to be honest, just to have more to put in the freezer from another state tag. I don't care. Don't got to be a monster.
Oh, I'd shoot anything that's legal with velvet.
Oh, yeah.
Down.
Be a sweet
awesome.
spike mount.
Yep.
Velvet spike.
But
shoot.
But yeah, so that was my Kentucky bird. You get 2 tags when you're when you get a Kentucky license to kill 2 birds. So I killed that bird on Wednesday. That gave me Thursday and Friday to hunt more. I tried out a couple other WMAs. Didn't have much luck. There was one I went to that I ran into a ton of hens and a bunch of hens, like nests and eggs, and it was a pretty crazy. But I went there in the morning and I didn't hear a single bird gobble. And then Friday afternoon, I drove up to meet you guys.
So yeah, let's transition.
Let's
transition into the good stuff. Wayne.
Yeah, man.
Oh,
yeah,
man,
John,
awesome.
tell us your rendition. Bryce got us a really cool Airbnb.
Last minute, literally like that Tuesday, I think, or Wednesday, and we had to be there Friday.
Yeah, but it worked out great.
No, it was perfect.
No, it worked out awesome.
We got lucky. Yeah, it was awesome.
It
was like a love shack, though.
The love
shack. It was like an Airbnb for lovers.
It's like we walk in and there's candles and.
I'm glad you guys showed up first, not me. I had to blow out the candles.
But it was fun to see. We all got there. We're all excited. We're unloading all our gear. Of course, we're all excited. So we're like, what calls are you going to use? What call are you going to use? We're out in the parking lot trying them all out, and sure as shit, gobble, 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 down the hill from right where we're staying on private. Did that get the blood flowing for you guys or what?
That was awesome.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
I had high hopes.
I mean, like what, 50, 60 yards down the hill from our Airbnb.
Oh, he was right there.
Just hammered. And we got him to gobble multiple times in a row. Even Bryce with his terrible diaphragm call. I don't know what that was.
Bad. It was way too big for my mouth, people, if you're asking why. Yes, I know.
Yeah, that's what she said.
But, we got settled in, and we headed out that night, try and roost some birds.
We went and got food. Then we went to a piece of public to roost.
Yeah, we all split up, and Josh, you ended up hearing one, right?
The Owl Hooter.
We split up. Like, I think that was probably the best use of our resources. When you got 3 guys together, would you guys agree? If you're going to roost birds, as much as we all wanted to probably hang out and talk and bullshit, but like split up, cover ground, like we're here to kill turkeys, right? And so we went to a place that I had done pretty well at in the past, and me and John are old and fat and don't want to walk very far. So we made Bryce walk like 5 miles back into the wilderness, and
I offered, really.
yeah,
I knew I
But,
wasn't into it.
They had
he
the
did.
bunk bed, so I had the big king bed. That I had
Yeah,
somewhere
he
nice
did.
to sleep after that walk.
Yeah, as soon as it started getting dark, I hit that owl hooter and I had a bird roost, or he gobbled off the roost. Like, I don't know. We figured we had a pretty good idea where he was on the side of this ridge. I don't know, 200 yards from the parking lot. So kind of like you're saying, Bryce, right next to the parking lot. But Bryce
Right
starts
on the same ridge.
hoofing it. You started hoofing it back. I call you. I'm like, Bryce, there's one gobbling
my
over here.
gosh.
Get over here. He's like
Sprinting.
running all the yeah.
For
And we got-
eternity.
Yeah, man. But we got him to gobble a couple times, and John, you didn't hear nothing?
I heard nothing that night. So I was getting, I was starting to have like nightmares. And I'm sitting there waiting. It's getting dark. It gets dusk, starts getting darker. I hit the owl, nothing. I'm like, oh no, it's going to be 2.0 of last year. So I was getting a little frustrated. And I was happy to meet up with you guys in the parking lot and hear some good news.
Yeah.
The next morning, when we rally and said that we were going right to that parking lot as early as we can get there, we start driving up the gravel road. And as we're driving up, we see headlights. We end up pulling into the driveway. And there was 3 trucks.
And 6 guys.
Yeah.
6 guys
Insane.
in their ponchos. It's
All
raining.
together, too. They were definitely one big posse.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They
It
came to
was
take
raining,
that
too.
spot.
I forgot about that.
It was pouring.
Yeah.
Pouring rain.
Pouring.
So we end up moving out of there, and we headed back to an old spot that me and Josh had hunted before, and he had hunted years before. We all split up into different parking lots and set up, hunted the morning, nothing for all 3 of us.
Terrible.
I'm discouraged, you know.
I actually really liked some of that country I was in, too. Like, I was baffled that I didn't hear a single turkey. There was nobody around there, at least around where I was, which wasn't far from you guys, obviously, but you guys ran into some people at the end, didn't you?
Yeah, so the ridge
Yeah.
system that we kind of set up on and worked in the morning, we noticed that it had been burned that last year. So wide open, hardly any foliage on the ground. And I think that kind of attributed to no birds being there. I don't
Definitely.
know.
Well-
We'll learn from year to year, but typically,
Yeah.
right, the year after a burn is the best. Maybe the second year after a burn with all your new foliage coming up. But the year after, it looked like a desert.
You know, I think that property, that chunk, in my opinion, so it used to be really good. And I think it's gone downhill because all those bike paths we were walking, John, those are all new.
Right.
So I don't know if that has something to do with it because, you know, there's a lot more just human traffic in there that there never used to be. But anyways, what happened
No, I
next?
agree. That definitely would attribute to, you know, birds not wanting to be there if people are constantly in there, riding bikes, walking dogs, running their dogs, whatever. But we ended up moving on to a new ridge system, kind of got on our phones, little Onyx, and kind of start fresh.
Didn't do any
So we
roosting.
ended up moving to a new ridge system and kind of explored, hit our tops, hit bridges, kept walking. We ended up finding a bunch of morels,
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
but we didn't hear any birds. And on our way out, you know, come noon, we were working on our way out and we ran into a guy from New York. And, you know, he kind of explained his experience for the last day or so. And it was the same as ours. Nothing, hardly anything. He did mention that he thought he heard. Oh, sorry. A couple of deer just ran through the yard and I had to
Oh, for him?
watch
That's
them
cool.
run through the yard. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But anyways, yeah, the New York guy he had a hard time from the way he was explaining to us. And we were having a hard time as well. And we kind of explained to him, you know, last year was a dud for us anyways. And he was, it sounded like he was on quite the tour himself. He was kind of talking about Alabama and driving all over, and he said it was real easy in Alabama. You know, they were all over the birds and tagging out, having fun. He's like, what is going on up here? He's like, this is supposed to be really good. No, it wasn't that day.
Yeah, we may have laid it on a little thick, John. We're like, yeah, you should probably get out of here. You should probably head over to the next state. It's pretty bad here.
To be fair, though,
we came
in my
down
mind,
here and didn't hear anything last year.
To be fair, though, I was so discouraged at this point. You know, last year we had nothing for like 2.5 days. This year, you know, you guys heard one on the roost. I didn't. So that's 4 straight days of nothing. I didn't even know that at that point I was thinking there weren't even any turkeys in the woods. You know, so I was pretty discouraged. Maybe I laid it on him too thick too. You're right.
Well, didn't we run into another guy too? We stopped and talked to. He was parked at that little pond.
Vermont.
Oh, that's right.
He told us, yeah, nothing, and didn't hear a single bird this morning.
Right, and he said he's very familiar with where he was hunting, and typically he had great luck, except for last year and this year. His take on it, you know, I'm sure, Josh, you want to elaborate, but his take was the weather as well, having colder than normal springs.
Yep, that's what I agree with him. I think you know, not to start anything controversial, but I think, you know, predators, all the raccoons and all them, yes, they play a part, but I think they get a pretty bad rap. Bobcats are not affecting the turkey population, guys. They're just not, like, at all. I think it's the weather, just like what you saw this year. Look at Ohio. Mm-hmm. Like, this is crazy because cold and wet. What was all last week and the week before? Rain. It rained for an entire week in the prime nesting time for these hens. And what do you think when it's 42 degrees out, 35 degrees out? We had frost last night. It froze. What do you think that's doing to these little poults and these eggs? Wiping them out, man. Mm-hmm. And when you get it's going to be the same. And that's what that study that the DNRs hopefully is doing, is hopefully these birds are learning to push their mating season back so that they're not getting caught in this weird spring weather that we've been having. And that may change when our turkey seasons start. But that's kind of where they came up with making Ashtabula start later, was that thought process, John.
Yeah, so we talked to the guy from New York for a while. We ended up driving around. What we ended up finding on that new ridge system was better habitat. Kind of, you just got a better feeling that people weren't back there. And, you know, we kind of put together a plan to possibly attack that the next day. You know, we drove around, scouted out some new pull-offs, access, lots of vehicles from all over. I think, what did we see? We saw New York plates, Vermont plates, West Virginia plates, Kentucky plates, Indiana, I believe I saw. You know, opening day for Wayne was busy. So day 2, we put our plan in action, spread out, hiked into our positions, tried to, you know, get on a bird first thing. And I know from my experience, I went in, you know, pitch black. We got up really, really early just to make sure we got our parking spots.
We didn't do any roosting the night before.
We did not. You're right.
No, we were lazy, guys. I was actually upset about it. I probably got a little too upset about that. But we were whooped. We were tired. Afternoon, yeah, we may have had some alcohol, which really, like, tired us out. We were going to do a podcast that day, and we were all like, no.
Drink beer and take naps.
Yeah. I don't know why you guys are so tired. You guys did one day of turkey hunting. I've been hunting for 6 days. I was destroyed, man.
When the captain's complaining, it's easy to follow.
Oh, whatever.
Yeah. Well, it didn't help that we had, you know, backstrap and good meal to sit down to either.
Ungodly hot peppers, but
yeah, a little too hot on the jalapenos.
Oh yeah, I forgot. That was funny.
But yeah, we split up, day 2, hiked in, hit our owl hooters, trying to locate birds. From my experience, it was like 8:39. I'm just getting deeper and deeper, calling and waiting and calling. Nothing. And then all of a sudden I heard a gobble, gobble, gobble in the distance. So I ended up just hitting the trail, riding the top of the ridge, try and cut that distance, get as close as I can, get to the next knob. This was probably 40 minutes. I just hoofed it. Just go. Got back in, got to the top of the knob, sat down, had a drink of water, gobble, gobble, gobble. I didn't even call or anything. So Josh ends up meeting up with me. And the whole time that Josh was hiking over to where I was, I don't know how much distance you covered, but I mean, you showed up and you had beads of sweat dripping off your brow. So I know you were
Too much
putting forth the effort.
I was like running. I was like, I will get this bird's gobbling. I will get there before he stops. Like, let's go,
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
But the wild thing was, he didn't stop the whole time. It was gobble, gobble, gobble. 5-10 minutes later, gobble, gobble. You could just hear him. So he was on fire. And by the time Josh got there, we ended up putting together a plan. We thought he was a ridge over, maybe, the backside of the ridge, because you still could hear a distance between us. So we made the decision, which in hindsight, I regret a little bit. Instead of taking the top of the ridge and running it down to what we thought he was on the finger of, we ended up going straight down the hill, crossing the bowl, getting on the opposite side, and running the ridge opposite, of where we thought he was to pop up on the backside of him. It was challenging, but we did it. A couple of fat dads running down the hill, running.
It was very challenging.
But we ended up popping up on the ridge that we thought they were on. And I don't know if we hit a call or they did it on their own. And gobble, 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 significantly louder. Not the ridge we picked. So we climbed this bastard all the way up, thinking they were going to be on it. Nope. He was still one over. But it turned out to be a great deal because we ended up hiking up to the top of the ridge and finding scratching and sign everywhere, all over this ridge top. Scratches, droppings, feathers. We're like, oh, this is where they're at. This is the roost. This is the spot.
John, that's like something we hadn't seen yet. We spent a whole day and a half in the woods, and we hadn't seen any turkey sign, which was terrible, right? And then this was the first, literally we got up on this ridge, and it's just looks like a flock of 40 turkeys had been through there, just scratchings, like you said, feathers, tracks, everything. Poop.
All over. No doubt they were there, and there was a bunch, and they spent significant amount of time there.
Yeah.
So it was definitely eye-opening, maybe for years ahead, looking back where we had scouted and struggled. You got to find the sign. I know it's something that everybody says, but it's absolutely the truth. You need to keep going until you find it. So we found it, and that bird was gobbling like crazy across the ridge. And there was a piece of private on the other side. So you're trying to put together a plan. Do we drop down the bowl, climb up the backside, just what we just did, or run the ridge top, which would probably be on the same elevation that they were at? Looking at the maps, we saw a pretty decent spot. We're like, all right, let's get to this spot. Let's not call. Let's not alert them that we're up here. Let's hightail. Let's go. They're gobbling. Gobble, 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 gobble. So we,
And that was your idea too, John, because I remember, dude, I don't know. I was tired. I wasn't thinking very well. I don't know. Because I remember when you wanted to do that, my first thought was I don't want to do that. I wanted to do something else. I don't remember what I wanted to do. But we were both tired, and I feel like our ideas were not meshing that morning, for some reason. And like that was your idea. I'm like, all right, every idea I've had has led us into this mess that we're in right now. So let's just do what John wants to do, and we go down to this ridge. And, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so let's just go get them. We're here, we're deep. Let's just go for it. So we start hightailing it. Wham! We're like jogging with all our stuff, and we get almost to the base of the finger, getting to the main ridge. So we needed to get on the main ridge, travel the main ridge, and get on the finger that they were on, which was one over from where we were at. So we get almost to the base of the ridge, of the main ridge, and boom!
Yeah.
What? Not maybe 100 yards from where we were at.
Mm-hmm.
So deflating. You could hear flapping, and we
Turkeys
saw
flying
two
across the
birds,
ridge, yeah.
take flight. So deflating. I know. I looked at your face, Josh, and you were.
I was pretty bummed.
You were down. You were down. Emotions were down.
Yes, because I dealt with so much. I dealt with so much of that in Kentucky, where it was like you felt like you were on something, and then some other guy would come in. Like I had that happen. I had a bird coming in, I thought, and some dude shot it when I was in Kentucky. So I was just like, not another one. I lost another one. But
so we ended up sitting down, collecting our thoughts, and really we were sitting there, and you could hear the guy talking on his phone.
mm-hmm.
I don't know if he was calling his wife. Hey, I got one. I'm coming home now. Whatever. We're just sitting there, just frustrated. So we were trying to come up with a plan. This dude was hanging around. So we're like, let's walk down the ridge that we were at, get back to where all the sign was, and kind of regroup, think about what we want to do, come up with a plan. So we moved down the ridge where we were at, back to where all the sign was, sit down, trying to put together a plan, and boom, gobble, gobble, gobble. The ridge where we initially heard them, they're back. So there must have been a bunch of them. We decided, okay, what do we do? Go down the bowl, up the backside, go back to where that guy was. Maybe he went back to his truck and just, leapfrog him and move in on the birds again. I know we didn't pick that idea because it just sounded redundant, If I was a bird and I got shot at, and I'm not going to walk myself right back into the same situation where my buddy just got blown away. They're gobbling like crazy. So we started calling where we were at. We're like, maybe we could pull them over. But every time we called, they wouldn't respond. They were gobbling on their own. Yep. So every time we'd call, there'd be a huge pause, nothing there, and then they'd gobble on their own. So obviously they couldn't hear us where we were at. So we decided, hey, cut the distance. Let's just drop down a bench, call from there. If that doesn't work, drop down another bench, call from there. If that doesn't work, well, then we got to take the long road, drop down the bowl, go up the other side, walk all the way around. So we ended up dropping down to the next bench, calling, and boom, they reacted right after. Josh called and gobble, gobble, gobble. So, and they sounded relatively close.
Yeah, they did.
Maybe 500 yards.
They were spinning around, I think, while they were gobbling, like in the same spot. There were sometimes they would gobble, and you're like, dude, they're coming. They're getting so close. And then they'd gobble the next time, and it'd be like, oh, man, it sounds like they got further away. But you didn't want to admit it to yourself,
Sure.
but yeah, they were pretty close. You could hear
So, yeah, they felt close, and they felt like I don't know. We were running out of options. Time was not on our side. We only had maybe 2.5 hours.
What time was it at this point? 9:30, 10?
9:30, 10, yeah. So time wasn't on our side. So we ended up setting up. And I felt like we had a pretty bulletproof setup. So a down tree, roots pulled up. I ended up putting my back to the root ball and put my gun over the tree as kind of a gun rest. So I already had my pretty much blind in front of me.
Yeah.
And then Josh, you picked a larger tree behind, a little bit higher up, put your back against it. I felt like we were golden.
Yep.
So I know we worked them birds, I don't know, 40 minutes. And
it was
you
a
could
little
just
while.
tell, yeah, it was a little bit to convince them. But they ended up, deciding to come on in. It was pretty exciting because you could tell they're getting closer.
Yeah, every time they got
Get ready. Come on. And then, we were close enough to shoot the edge of the ridge. So we had our down tree and maybe 40 yards to the edge of the ridge. So if they just popped their heads over and showed themselves, they were going to get shot.
toast.
So I felt like we had a good spot. But as they were coming, you could hear them scratching in the leaves, clucking, making noise. And I don't know, since you're editing the video, if you could hear all that, or even just my excitement, like, oh, they're coming. Yep, they're coming.
You can hear a lot of that. Yeah. Not as good as we could hear it. I think a lot of it gets lost. When I was editing my Kentucky hunt, I was kind of bummed about how little the camera actually picked up. But yeah, it represents what we heard pretty well.
Great. Yeah, so they end up cresting the edge, and it was just pure excitement, man. We saw two, they weren't long beards, a couple of jakes, but I was still pumped up. I was excited. And, under our breath, I don't know if you could hear it, but we're like, hey, we got to take them both. So let me know when you're clear and I'm clear. And we played that game for, it felt like forever, but I'm sure it was only maybe 45 seconds.
Yeah, if that, yeah.
Maybe. But yeah, they both came over and beelined it right towards where we were at. And, I think at both moments, I was like,
you couldn't get a shot at first. Right? Weren't they walking like right behind a tree straight at us? Because I remember they popped up and you were like, here they come. And I'm like, bullshit. Like, no way. I'm like looking for them. And then there they are, and they were walking right at us. Big tree and some brush between John and the birds. I could see them coming the whole way. So I'm like, shoot them, John, and you're like, there's stuff between. And
yeah, it wasn't clear.
Yeah, so then, like you said, I was trying to get my gun around so that I could shoot at the same time. And I think at, what were they, 12 yards, 10 yards?
Oh, man, I felt like they were right on top of us. And I ended up being clear at the last moment, and you were not clear. But you could tell they had gone as far as they were willing to go without seeing anything. So you could tell their heads were fully, up, and they're searching and looking around, and they're starting to get nervous, and they're getting, they were getting itchy and ready to run. And, that's the point where you just got to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And made a good shot, man. Smoked him.
Oh, you blew his head off, man.
So he ended up blew his head off, rock and roll. It was awesome. And his little buddy ended up running away. So me and Josh were all excited, fist bumps and hugs and excited.
Right.
What are we going to do? This is great. Da, 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
And then gobble, 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 right at the bottom of the hill. We're like, whoa. Oh, okay, let's get set back up. Come on. And Josh, you still got a tag. I'll grab the camera, get set up. We'll just switch spots. So he's gobbling, and it was that Jake. He ends up coming back up the hill, but maybe 100 yards on the same bench we were on. So I could see him. And he's calling and looking for his buddy. Well, his buddy ain't coming to meet him. He's over there trying. He's trying. So he's over there calling to our right. All the way to our left, we hear a big gobble, gobble, gobble. We're like, whoa, different gobble. That's a long beard.
Yep.
We're like, let's just stay, hang out, see what happens. This Jake is going bananas over here. Let him pull him over. So what did we play? Cat and mouse for the remainder of the time.
Yeah, it was a pretty good
while.
going
back and forth, and they're right below us.
Yeah, that Jake would do like the cluck, cluck, and then he would like do that weird gobble, and cluck, cluck, cluck. Like you can hear that really well in the video, John. So that came out pretty cool. But
that's cool.
Yeah, but yeah, Bryce ended up Meeting up with that big old Tom.
That big old Tom. I just hang up the phone. I'm just like sitting on a knee and I'm not even in position to ready to shoot or nothing. And I just see a big old freaking bright red head pop over the top, look at me and fly away. Never got to see the beard, but he came right at me. If I would have been set up, ready to shoot.
You got to pay attention, man. Got to keep that gun at the ready.
I was far from ready. I was on two knees, like leaning on my gun. Like, oh my God, is it noon yet? I can't take this. I'm dying.
Get me out of here.
It was an awesome experience, though. So much fun. We had action for hours.
Mm-hmm.
Really, you can't, ask for anything more.
John's poor dead turkey laid in the leaves for an hour and a half
Hours.
while we were working these other birds. But did that hunt, John? Did that sell the Wayne to you? Are you a believer?
I don't know that I'm a full believer. It was fun. I had a great time. I'm not opposed to doing it again. I don't know that I'll shoot a Jake again. I might just pass, knowing that I've got the northeast zone of Ohio. I'd really like to get, back in long beards. But I'm not regretting anything. I fully enjoyed myself. I'm really, really proud of what we were able to accomplish. Jake and the Wayne, the day after opening day, with everybody and their brother out in the woods, chasing all the same birds. Hell yeah. It was awesome.
It says something for sure.
It does.
Should be proud, John, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a cool experience, man. I had a ton of fun, and it's been definitely better down there in previous years. I think what we ran into is a good sign, indicative of the turkey population may be coming back. We got a lot of jakes. That's kind of what the Ohio DNR was saying before the turkey season started, was that there's going to be a lot more jakes running around this year. And that's kind of what I've seen in Ohio and Kentucky, was way more jakes, especially on my private land properties, than I've seen in the last 3 years combined. So it's pretty cool. I actually read something recently that was kind of interesting and makes me feel better about the turkeys I harvested this year. Not that I feel bad about them at all, but shooting jakes is actually better for the turkey population, because what happens is before turkey season comes in, before mating season for the turkeys come in, they got their pecking order figured out, right? The hens know who's going to breed them. The tom that is, in the area, that's like the main head dude, the dominant tom, he's the one that's going to pretty much breed all the hens. And this article that I read pretty much says that, say it's opening day of turkey season and you shoot that tom on your farm, especially in the state that the population is now on a lot of these farms and most of Ohio, where there's not a lot of big mature longbeards, you may shoot the only longbeard for a few miles, right? They're saying that those hens won't actually mate with those jakes. So by shooting jakes, you're actually making sure that those hens all get bred with the dominant tom in the area, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if it's actually true. Maybe some of our listeners can point out that, if they disagree or whatever, but shooting jakes is actually better for your turkey population.
Sounds legit to me.
Yeah, it's not like deer, I guess, where, a 2-year-old buck will breed a doe and a doe will let him breed her. Like with turkey, they got that pecking order, and
it's interesting.
I don't know how much truth there is to it. Interesting though.
We got a lot of questions about turkey hunting. From the start,
we got a long way to go.
Yeah,
we got a long way.
We're ever gonna figure them out. Yeah,
but yeah, Wayne was a success. It was a great trip.
It was a success.
Yeah, we had a ton of fun, but we came back home to reality, and Bryce, you had a pretty cool few days.
Yeah, great.
You want to tell
few
us
days.
about those?
I came home, didn't
What
kill a
happened?
bird didn't kill a bird in the Wayne. Had some action though. Was calling some birds, whatnot, and then that story I just told there at the end. But come home, head high, ready to go for these easy Northeast Ohio birds on these small farm chunks and whatnot. And it's exactly what it was. I had one roosting behind the house, back here in this cornfield I'm looking at. I had heard him a couple nights sitting by the fire before season. My girlfriend actually heard him. I couldn't hear him because I'm like Josh, I got pretty bad ears. But once I got the crow call ripping out there, I heard him and went after him one morning. And I had the Jake and the hen decoy out. And I called him across the field. I could see him coming. He was far, but he came right up in the wide open. Couldn't really see his beard well, though. And so I couldn't really tell what he was. Gobbling. He got real skittish about that Jake decoy, and he never came in. He kind of just stayed away, went behind me. I'm sitting in this single line of trees that split two, a bean field, a cornfield. He went behind me and was just gobbling for like 15 minutes.
Real
I thought
quick,
he was
Bryce,
right on top of me.
let me ask you a question, because I remember we talked about this the night before you went in after him. You roosted a bird. You called me. You're like, what do I do? How close do I get to him? How close did you end up getting to him in the dark? And how early did you get up? This bird was roosted in like almost an island of trees on the edge of this field, so he could see you essentially walking in the dark.
I went to the other field edge, so I don't know how many 100 yards that is. I'd have to measure it out, but 300.
Oh, really? It's that wide?
If that, maybe not. That sounds like a stretch. There's no way. It's got to be closer than that. Because at that end it narrows actually. Probably a 200-yard width.
From so you walked in.
He's not roosting on the edge of that island, right? He's back in there a little bit, because there's a creek and a pond. He's just roosted right above that. But
so you felt pretty safe walking 200 yards from this bird out on the edge of this field.
Yeah, okay. And it was, I guess that was the second morning, but yeah, I felt all right with it because I walked on the edge of a wheat field, which the wheat field was to my left towards him. And on my right was like a freshly tilled field. So I had like a dark background to me walking in anyways, right? So it wasn't like I was glowing in the middle of this green wheat field, or cut cornfield. So I think that helped me too. But anyways, he never really came in close enough. He goes back out from being around me the same way he came in, probably like 40, 50 yards. And he kind of came up and peeked his head over. I still couldn't really see all of his beard. So I just let him go. I thought maybe he was a Jake. And
Bryce, you're too good to shoot Jakes. You're too good to shoot Jakes.
I'm not too good to shoot Jakes. But for private up here and some prime farmland, no, I get it. I didn't want to settle on the second. Well, hell, that was like Tuesday. So that was day 4. I mean, I wasn't going to settle right away. Now, if I had been down in the Wayne, I would have shot for sure. I still would have missed, but I had a shot. Anyways, Thursday or Friday, I roost him again. Same spot. I'm like, okay, let's see if I can get better luck at this thing. Maybe he's bigger, and I thought he's got a bigger beard. Let's go try it. My girlfriend wants to go. I get even closer to him, actually. I went a little farther down the field line the next time, and it kind of sticks out towards him more, like another 30 yards, and there's like a little point in a creek. So I put my girlfriend and I right in this briar bush, right on that creek on that point, and put only the hen decoy out. I didn't take the Jake decoy, hoping he would strut and all that, because I'd seen him strutting out there before season too. So was like, maybe he'll strut and I'll have my time and take a shot. I call him in. He comes across the field, hops in the woods like to the right of me, and is like trying to go behind me. Still gobbling. I mean, he's gobbling after every call, gobbling crazy. So I really rip the ceramic call. I ripped the ceramic call, and I was like going back and forth with my mouth call really freaking repetitively. Like I felt like I was overcalling to get him to come back around, which he did. And so I'm sitting in this briar bush. To the right, I can't see. Right in front of me and to the left, I can see. And right in front of me is that decoy. I hear him coming in. He's right on top of me. I can see him through the briar bush. And he's looking at the decoy, not strutting. I'm like, what the fuck is up with this turkey? Like, why is it not strutting, doing the whole thing? You know what I mean? Why is it so decoy shy? He keeps like turning around like he's going to go back in the woods. Like that decoy's scaring him too. I'm like, what the frick? So,
Bryce, are you telling me that it's not like the Outdoor Channel? He didn't just run in and strut and
yes. It's not
Come
like
on.
any other turkey hunt I've had though, John.
What
Every
the
turkey
hell?
is either strutted or wanted to annihilate my Jake decoy, right? So I'm just I'm kind of confused at this point. I've never had this situation unfold.
Well, you
But
don't turkey hunt very much then, because that's about every situation I've ever had.
That's all I've ever known.
Yeah.
really, I guess so then, Josh. I don't know. I've always had him strutting or running at my Jake decoys, but
No, you're lucky,
I don't know.
man. That's cool.
You're lucky.
Yeah,
It's good.
I guess. I see a small hole in this briar bush, and after he kept turning around and weirding out, I'm like, as soon as he gets to that hole, I'm shooting, and I shot. He was still walking. I missed. Off he went. 25 yards.
No.
Gone. Watch him fly right back to that same roost spot.
Oh.
25 yards. So what'd you learn, Bryce?
Yards.
What'd you learn? Even with $50 TSS loads and a brand new shotgun.
Number 5s versus number 6.
Well,
Son of
this
a...
is. I'll give you what I learn, but I don't learn much because it's a repetitive thing with me. I never shoot my guns enough, and every new gun I've gotten that I've shot at an animal, I've missed the first time I've shot at it. Every gun. My first pump shotgun I got for deer hunting. First muzzleloader I got. First time I went squirrel hunting with my first 22. And now this one. I've missed
It's not a very good track record.
every time. It's like my kryptonite. It's part of I'm not used to the gun. I don't know what it is. I just fold under pressure the first time with a new gun.
Well, besides the fact that, maybe it did have something to do with you're not used to shooting the gun or whatever like that. Like in the actual hunting situation, like what do you think you could have done a little differently to maybe
Exactly. I should have taken what I do in bow season and put that to gun hunting. You know how you put all them steps in your head when you're pulling back a bow on something?
Mm-hmm.
You have step 1 through 8 or whatever they are, 5. With shooting my first single bead gun at an animal, I should have had that 1 or 2 steps in my head of bury the bead, bury the cheek, bury the bead, bury the cheek, to telling myself to aim, right? That's what I should have done.
So you think you missed because your head
You
would
rushed it?
Okay.
And me not burying the bead enough while he was moving, I think I had enough carry with my shot, maybe, or lead, but if I'm not burying it perfect, that thing probably went high and right.
With those TSS loads or whatever you're shooting and the turkey choke, like at 20, 25 yards, your pattern's not very big.
You can't.
So.
Right. Yeah, I think
that shot.
I definitely rushed it. I rushed it because I was timid he wasn't going to come any farther because he kept turning around like that. But even with, rushing it can be a bullshit excuse, but rushing it or not, I still could have had that thing in my head saying, bury the bead. You know what I mean?
Well,
How many practice rounds did you do at 20 yards?
0. I shot them all at 40.
So I think there's something to be said with, okay, learning your max range, but also understanding what your equipment's going to do at short range.
Right.
I think this also applies with deer hunting and bow hunting, especially.
Correct.
Everybody wants to think, hey, how far can my bow reach? You know, am I solid at 25? Am I solid at 40? Well, what are you going to be at 5?
Get comfortable
when that big
at
buck
10.
is right below you. How does your equipment, how are you calibrated? You know, and I don't know that everybody does their due diligence on that micro range, that short range. When I first got my bow, I know, Josh, you mentioned, dude, don't forget, you know, that 5-yard directly below shot. So I took it to heart when I was first getting started, and I actually had a foam 3D target deer, and I took my climber and climbed up 20 feet in my backyard and shot straight down at that thing over and over and over again, just practicing.
I was thinking about that the other day.
It's important.
I want to do that this year, going into this year.
Yeah, man, practicing all those shots. But getting back to your hunt, Bryce.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe the gun shooting a little more would help you out, but
right.
The question I want to ask you is what made you feel like you had to rush?
Because he kept turning away from that hen decoy and not strutting. Like, I thought he was just going to turn around and walk away spooked like he did the last time. And I seen that one gap. I was like, this is my opening. He never come to my actual opening in front of the decoy. So
do you feel like you have pressure to fill your tag?
Then I did, yeah. I don't give a shit now. I'm done. But the next time I went hunting, I didn't really have pressure. Then I felt like I had pressure, yes. One, because
Have you seen that bird back out there?
No. And that's part of the reason I felt pressure, because I knew after that first hunt and then that one, that's the only gobbler I heard both times. And Rooston, like, he's the only one there. Him and a few hens he probably already knocked up. So, and I didn't get anything in Wayne, so I'm like, I mean, I can try down where I deer hunt in southern Ohio that I have never scouted for turkey, but odds are slim, right? I mean, I can run ridges, but lot slimmer odds. So yeah, that's why I had pressure.
Yeah, I wish I was better at that. I feel like I had pressure. Like last deer season, I rushed every shot. I made a bad shot on almost every deer I killed. I recovered all of them, but you know, that's what I was trying to get at, is a lot of us have that pressure to perform, that pressure to, you know, show your buddies, I can kill one too, you know what I mean? And being on a podcast and knowing you're going to talk about this stuff and videoing it and stuff adds to that pressure and stuff. And that's one thing I want to get a lot better at, is realizing, like, you know, I don't have to fill my tag. It's fine. Like, I can still get on here and talk about turkey hunting. I can still make videos of the deer I see and stuff. It'll be okay, you know, or the turkeys I see. And that's something that, you know, I think maybe it takes a lot of work to get good at. And because I can sit here all I want and be like, yeah, I don't worry about it. You know, I'll eat tag soup. I save my tag for, you know, but that's not true. Everybody feels that, like, they want to do good and show, you know, look how good of a deer hunter, look how good of a turkey hunter I am. But, you know, the only people that don't have that are like 50, 60, 70-year-old dudes who've been doing it for 55 years, you know.
Just killing machines.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been getting better at it.
It takes experiences, I think. you know?
It does.
Part
You
of
need to get more experiences. It's hard to explain, but I feel like I've gotten better at it because 4 years ago I shot probably the best deer I'll ever shoot. And looking back, I feel like I rushed it. I had the shakes super bad. We'll probably tell the story later on when we start getting into deer hunting. But after that, long story short on that is I never found him. And it was heartbreaking, and it still makes my stomach upset to this day. And from that moment on, it's almost like you have to make your mind up before you even go out. If you're not going to have your opportunity, you're not going to take it. So if you're not going to have your perfect shot, you're not going to rush it. You have to make all these decisions before you close your tailgate and start walking out in the woods. So advice for me to you, Bryce, moving forward, kind of mentally get yourself where you need to be. And like Josh said, it's okay. It's not the end of the world.
That's a great point, John, is knowing exactly like that line before you get out there. Like, this is a shot I'll take. This is a shot I won't take. You know what I mean? And sticking to that and not folding under pressure and be like, well, maybe it'll work out. You know what I mean?
Maybe I'll throw that flyer at 55 yards and I'll have my miracle shot.
Yep.
Everybody, the miracle shot doesn't work.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
And if it did, it's a fluke. But everybody's guilty of that. I've taken shots at deer and turkey where I'm like, but if it works, I'll be a hero, And I just, and you regret it every time almost. So
because it never works.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh shoot!
But being able to go ahead, Bryce. Sorry.
I just wanted to touch back on something you said about the pressure. I don't get the pressure from the podcast, from other hunters, from friends. It's the pressure, honestly, I endure on myself because I've only taught myself to hunt and had the experiences I've put myself in with hunting and fishing. This goes with anything. I put it all on myself. I said in the beginning, grew up hunting a little bit with my dad, but to be honest, I didn't learn much, didn't do it much with him. So everything I've learned has been on my own shoulders, and I put the pressure on myself. The quicker I can endure that and overcome that, the better hunter I'll be. But it's hard. It's a mountain to climb.
Those internal battles.
It's a mindset.
It's a real thing. Yep. Pretty cool, man. Well, it's
Great
not
year.
over yet. It's not over yet. You still got what? We still got this weekend.
4 days.
If John's nice to you, he might invite you up there for the last weekend. But before we end this, I tagged out in Ohio, guys.
I forgot
too.
About this.
Yeah,
one.
man. So when was
Same
that?
Day,
what day?
No, the first.
It was the day after we got back.
So it would have been Monday. And this is a pretty quick hunt, pretty short story, so I won't keep you guys too much longer. But is at the Frank Farm. So anybody who's watched any of my videos probably hear me talk about the Frank Farm like it's going out of style. It's my favorite farm. I hunt it all the time. I've had a trail camera up for the last month, and I've had birds on there pretty regularly. So it was that Monday, and I figured, I'm just going to get back in there and walk back the path and see what I hear as it starts getting light out. Well, I get back in there, it starts getting light out, and I don't hear nothing but what actually was it? I think it was a plane that flew over or something, if I remember right. But a plane flies over, and it was kind of low, and after that plane flew over, like I hear this like cluck, 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 and I look up in the tree, and there's a hen literally roosted maybe 80 yards from me. Had no idea I was there. So I almost think she was like sleeping in the tree as I was walking by, and the plane woke her up or something. And then I heard her clucking like while I could still hear the plane. I got video of her up in the tree and everything. But she kind of woke up and I'm like kneeled down videotaping her, and I'm like waiting to hear a bird gobble. Cause I'm like, dude, there's got to be a tom roosted in here somewhere. I get him on camera every freaking morning. She clucks a few times, and about 10 minutes go by. She flies down and lands, and I get video. She's, eating and picking stuff, and she's kind of minding her own business for the first, 10 minutes that she's on the ground. And then she just starts kind of like cluck, cluck, meow, 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 cluck, 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 and just calling out real loud. Well, I hear a tom gobble across the road, which is where there's a tom over there every year. The last 2 years, I've battled this tom trying to get him to cross the road, come over so I could kill him. He's impossible to kill. So immediately when that bird gobbled, my like heart sank. I'm like, oh, it's him again. I'm like, I'm never going to kill this bird. So this hen is just like, she's like getting loud, yelping loud, clucking, kind of doing some cutting. And she starts working out towards that tom, out towards the road. And there's a big field on both sides of the road, and some woods on the other side too. But she kind of disappears over the hill. So I stand up and I'm like, dude, I'm just going to kind of sneak down this logging road and kind of parallel where that hen went and get out close to this big pasture. And maybe I can call him across the road into this pasture or something. And I get about maybe 150 yards down this logging road, and then I hear a group of birds gobble behind me, almost like where I was sitting watching the hen. And immediately I'm like, oh, here we go. So I just set up real quick. I've actually sat in this tree, at this tree before. It's like 2 trails come together, so it's this big wide kind of intersection, and I actually have my that cell cam I'm talking about right on that intersection. So I got pictures of the turkeys coming in and then dead and then me. It's kind of cool. but so I start yelping, get set up, start yelping, calling, and they're gobbling, hammering. I call, they gobble, I call, they gobble. Every time they're getting closer, it's like literally exactly how you want a turkey hunt to work out. And these birds come in fired up, all strutting. They're all jakes, and literally walk within 7 feet of me. I mean, like right on the other side of this briar bush, right there. They cross my my shooting lane, and I let them all walk at first. And they're all kind of looking, and it's kind of mind-blowing, man, because I think they were probably 100 yards the last time I called to them. And they literally, like I said, they came within 7 feet of me. They're just so good at telling exactly where you're at. And they came, and they're all looking, and then they all kind of like start figuring out something's wrong. And when they turned, they walked back out and crossed my shooting lane again. And I had turned my camera at that point. It was like good video. And that one bird just hammered like 10 feet in front of me. Gobble, 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 gobble. And I'm like, oh, I got to. And I just blew his head off, man. Dropped him. So awesome. I was pretty pumped about that. I shot a second Jake, which, I have no problem with. I was pretty excited because that kind of opened up my turkey season. I've actually been taking Hannah out. I've had her out probably twice now. My girlfriend, she bought a apprentice license and a turkey tag. So that's been pretty fun trying to get her a bird. But yeah, man, that was nice. So tagged out pretty quick, man. And I've just been editing and trying to get these podcasts out and get some videos out for everybody since then. But pretty cool season. And honestly, I'll be completely honest. Season. I'm kind of excited for it to be over so that I can switch gears and start worrying about deer hunting. Because for some reason that has been like really creeping up into the back of my brain lately.
I'm ready to start shooting my bow. I almost did today.
I know. I'm looking at my bow. I haven't shot it in months.
Mm-hmm. Come on, fellas. I already got mine restrung.
Jeez, fresh. Big time.
Yeah,
John's on
it. Ready, baby.
John's on it.
We gotta do some 3D shoots.
Yes.
We got stuff to do.
We do.
I'm excited. Mm-hmm. Yep. we're going to keep doing these podcasts. We're going to try to do them every other week, guys. This is probably our last turkey hunting podcast. We'll probably switch gears, start talking about archery or deer or something here the next few weeks. But yeah, unless you guys got anything else you want to talk about, I think we'll probably wrap this one up. We've been talking for about an hour and a half. So
I got a pizza to eat. I'm good.
sounds good, man. Hey, appreciate you guys joining and talking. Had a ton of fun with you guys down in the Wayne. Yeah, thank you all for joining and listening again. This wouldn't be very fun if you guys weren't clicking and subscribing and actually listening to what we got to say, so we really appreciate it. Tune in to the last episode if you're interested in any turkey hunting tips. We talked a lot about turkey hunting setups, how to set up on gobblers, how to set up on turkeys in hills, ridges, systems like that, in flatland. Kind of, me and Bryce had a podcast, maybe, 2 podcasts ago, episode 3. We talked a lot about turkey calling and all that stuff. So if you guys are interested in that, if you're still turkey hunting hard, make sure you go back and check out some of our recent episodes. With that said,
on the next one.
Yep. Thank you guys for joining, and we'll see you on the next one.